No one in that courtroom expected the day to turn into chaos. It was supposed to be another routine hearing, papers, statements, legal arguments. But the moment Hazel E stood up, eyes cold and voice steady, the atmosphere shifted. You could feel it. Something was coming. Reporters leaned forward. Cameras, though restricted, suddenly felt like they were everywhere. Blueface sat back, trying to look calm, but the tension in his jaw gave him away. Chrisean glanced between them, confused, sensing a storm she wasn't prepared for. Then Hazel spoke. Her voice didn't shake. It didn't hesitate. She looked straight at the judge, then at Blueface, and said the words that froze the entire room. I was pregnant. Gasps shot through the courtroom like a shockwave. Blueface's eyes widened, his composure cracking instantly. Chrisean's face drained of color, her breath catching as if the floor had vanished beneath her. The judge paused mid-sentence, stunned into silence. But Hazel wasn't done. She leaned forward, staring directly at Blueface, and added one more line. Quiet, controlled, devastating. And he knew. The courtroom exploded. Whispers, shouts, disbelief. But beneath all of it, one terrifying question echoed. If this was true, what else had been hidden? The shock of Hazel's claim didn't fade. It thickened the air, settling over everyone like a storm cloud ready to break. The courtroom buzz slowly returned, but it wasn't casual whispering anymore. It was panic, speculation, fear. People weren't just reacting to the words, they were reacting to the history behind them. Because everyone in that room knew the complicated, messy past between Hazel E and Blueface. Their connection had always been whispered about, private meetings, sudden disappearances, unexplained tension whenever they crossed paths. But nothing had ever been confirmed. It all lived in rumors and blurry timelines, until now. Blueface wasn't the type to lose control in public. He built his image on confidence, bravado, dominance. But the moment Hazel said she had been pregnant, something inside him cracked. His posture stiffened, his breathing sharpened, and a flash of something that looked a lot like fear crossed his face. Not anger. Fear. Chrisean saw it. Her eyes locked onto him, searching, pleading for some explanation, some denial, anything that could make the words disappear. She had always suspected there were pieces of his past he kept hidden from her. But this was a wound she didn't know how to process. Her hands clutched the armrest, knuckles turning white, trying to keep herself grounded. Hazel didn't look at her. She kept her gaze fixed on Blueface, as if the rest of the room didn't matter. Her expression wasn't triumphant. It wasn't emotional. It was controlled, almost hauntingly calm, like someone who had carried a heavy secret for too long and finally decided to let it fall. Some people in the courtroom believed her instantly. There had always been whispers that something deeper happened between them, that their fallout wasn't just personal drama. Others shook their heads, thinking she was using the moment for revenge, trying to destroy him publicly. But even the skeptics couldn't ignore one chilling detail. Blueface didn't deny it. He didn't jump up and shout she's lying. He didn't look outraged. Instead, his eyes darted toward his lawyer, panic simmering just beneath the surface. His lawyer leaned in, whispering urgently, but Blueface barely heard him. He was staring at Hazel like she held the nuclear switch to his entire world. Chrisean noticed that too. Her breath hitched, her lips trembling as she whispered, "Why didn't you tell me?" It wasn't loud enough for the judge to hear, but Hazel heard it. For the first time, her cold expression softened, not with sympathy, but with something sadder, heavier. Regret. Pain. No one could tell. This wasn't just a courtroom accusation. There was history in Hazel's eyes. There was hurt. And that's when the emotional weight truly settled. Because if Hazel had been pregnant, that meant there had been a moment where her life had changed in a way none of them knew about. A moment she went through alone. A moment she believed Blueface shared responsibility for. Whether her claim was true or not, the emotional truth behind it felt real. The judge finally regained enough composure to speak, though his voice wavered. "Miss Hazel, are you presenting this claim as part of your evidence?" Hazel inhaled slowly, steadying herself. Everyone leaned forward, waiting, terrified of what she might say next. "Yes," she replied quietly. Because it wasn't just a pregnancy. It was what happened afterward. A cold shiver rippled through the courtroom. Reporters immediately scribbled notes, eyes wide with anticipation. Even those who doubted her earlier now leaned in, sensing something darker, something more serious lurking beneath her words. Blueface swallowed hard, shaking his head slightly, whispering under his breath, "Don't do this." Hazel continued, her voice low but unwavering. When I told him, everything changed. He distanced himself. He acted like I didn't exist. And then suddenly, I lost all access to him. Calls blocked. Messages ignored. It was like I had never mattered. The room went silent again. That wasn't a dramatic accusation. It sounded like lived experience. But before anyone could process it, Hazel added one more line that sent another ripple of tension through the courtroom. And I wasn't the only one who knew. Blueface froze. His reaction was instant, eyes wide, breath caught, muscles tensing. It was the kind of response that didn't need words. The kind that hinted at something bigger, something he feared being exposed. Chrisean stared at him, realization dawning slowly, painfully. Her heart raced as she remembered small moments, arguments cut short, hidden phone calls, late-night disappearances, excuses that never quite made sense. Pieces she had ignored were suddenly snapping together. She whispered, barely audible, "Who else knew?" Hazel didn't answer immediately. Instead, she looked past Blueface, toward the back of the courtroom, her expression shifting into something more guarded. As if she expected someone to react. As if she was waiting for a shadow to move. That subtle glance didn't go unnoticed. A few reporters followed her line of sight. So did Chrisean. And for the first time, the room sensed that Hazel's claim wasn't simply about a pregnancy. It was connected to something larger. Something orchestrated. Something hidden. A secret someone else desperately wanted buried. And whoever that person was, they might still be in the room. The tension inside the courtroom didn't just rise. It tightened, coiling like a wire ready to snap. Hazel's eyes remained fixed on that shadowy corner of the room. And for a moment, no one breathed. Then she slowly reached into her folder and pulled out a single sheet of paper, folded and creased like it had been held onto for months. "I wasn't supposed to have this," she said quietly. Blueface lawyer immediately stood. "Your Honor, we object to any undisclosed material." Hazel cut him off. "This isn't evidence I collected. This was sent to me." A murmur swept through the room. "Sent by who?" She unfolded the paper with trembling hands. Reporters leaned closer, pens poised. Even the judge looked uneasy. Hazel read aloud. "She's saying she's pregnant. Handle it. Make her disappear if you have to." Gasps erupted. Chrisean covered her mouth, eyes filling with horror. Blueface slammed his hand on the table. "That's fake. You don't know where that came from." Hazel looked up, voice cracking for the first time. "I know exactly where it came from. Because the person who sent it signed their name." She turned the paper around. Even from a distance, one word was visible in bold handwriting. "B." Chrisean's breath hitched. "Blueface," she whispered. But Hazel slowly shook her head. "No, the other B." Confusion swept through the courtroom, until a reporter muttered, "Brandon, his manager." Blueface's face drained of color. Hazel continued, voice trembling with anger and heartbreak. "He told me I was a problem. That my pregnancy was inconvenient. That I needed to stay quiet for the sake of the brand." A tear slipped down her cheek, but she wiped it away quickly. "I tried to protect him. I thought maybe he just needed time. Maybe he was scared." But then, the messages started. She held up her phone, screen glowing. The judge hesitated. "Miss Hazel, phones are not permitted." She pressed play. A voice recording filled the courtroom, grainy but unmistakable. Male voice. "She's emotional. She'll fold. Just cut her off. Block her. She'll get the message." Another voice responded, Blueface's voice, low and tired. "Fine. Just make sure she doesn't go public. Last thing I need is a headline." Chrisean flinched as if she had been physically struck. She stared at Blueface, tears streaming. "You said there was nothing," she whispered. "You swore." Blueface stood abruptly, panic flooding his expression. "That recording is edited. You don't know what was actually happening." Hazel shook her head. "You knew. You knew, and you let them isolate me. You let them silence me." Her voice broke, raw and vulnerable. "I went through everything alone. The fear, the pain, the loss. And you didn't even check on me." The room went dead silent. "Lus." The word hung in the air like a blade. Chrisean's hand flew to her chest. "You lost it," she whispered. Hazel nodded, voice barely audible. "I miscarried. And the only message I got afterward was..." She scrolled, then read. "Good. Problem solved." The courtroom erupted. Shouts, sobs, outrage. Even the judge looked shaken, his stern composure cracking. Blueface stepped forward, voice cracking. I never said that. I never would. Hazel cut him off, eyes blazing through tears. Maybe you didn't type it, but someone close to you did. Someone you trusted. Someone acting on your behalf. She turned slowly, staring again toward the back of the room. And they are still protecting you. Reporters twisted in their seats, following her gaze. Chrisean followed too, then suddenly gasped. A woman in the back row quickly lowered her phone, turning her face away. Her posture was stiff, tense, like she'd been caught doing something she shouldn't. Hazel's voice dropped to a chilling whisper. She was there. She knew everything. She told me to stay quiet, that speaking out would ruin all of us. Blueface's eyes widened with horror. Don't, he whispered. Hazel, don't say her name. Hazel stared at him, heartbroken and furious. You should have protected me. She stepped forward, pointing toward the back. Instead, you let your own team destroy me. The woman in the gallery finally looked up, locking eyes with Hazel, eyes filled with panic. And in that moment, everyone in the courtroom realized. This wasn't just betrayal. Someone had orchestrated Hazel's silence. And that person had just been exposed. The fallout hit instantly. The moment Hazel pointed toward the back row, the courtroom transformed from tense to explosive. Reporters scrambled to stand, cameras, despite restrictions, were suddenly lifted, hidden lenses and phones capturing every possible angle. The gallery erupted into whispers and gasps, the sound swelling like a wave crashing against walls. The woman Hazel had exposed tried to shrink into her seat, pulling her hair forward to hide her face, but it was too late. Chrisean stared at her, breath shaking, trying to place where she had seen her before. Then it clicked. That's his PR handler, she whispered, voice trembling. She's always with him. She was at every event. Her voice cracked. She was with him the night he disappeared for hours. Blueface's reaction was immediate. He spun toward the woman, eyes filled with fury and panic. Why are you here? He hissed. Who told you to come? She didn't answer. Instead, she stood abruptly, chair scraping loudly against the floor. For a moment, she looked ready to run, but a bailiff stepped into her path. You need to sit down. Her voice came out strained, brittle. I have nothing to do with this. She's lying. Hazel let out a broken laugh, not out of humor, but disbelief. You told me to disappear. You visited me in the hospital. You looked me in the eyes and said, the best thing you can do is stay quiet. Chrisean's hand flew to her mouth as she staggered back, the realization hitting her like a punch. You knew she was pregnant. Her voice shook with betrayal. And you didn't tell me? Any of you. Blueface opened his mouth, desperate. Chrissy, listen. Don't, she snapped, the word tearing out of her. Her voice shattered with pain. Don't you dare say my name like you care. Her knees buckled, and she grabbed the edge of the bench for support, tears streaming down her face. The sight struck the room harder than any evidence. This wasn't scandal anymore. This was heartbreak unfolding in real time. The judge banged his gavel, voice strained. Order! Order! This courtroom will maintain. But even he couldn't regain control. Hazel turned toward Chrisean, her expression softening for the first time. I never wanted to hurt you, she whispered. You didn't deserve this. Chrisean looked up, eyes filled with raw pain. Then why didn't you tell me? Why did I have to find out like this? Hazel hesitated, tears welling. Because every time I tried, someone stopped me. All eyes shifted back to the woman in the gallery. She finally lifted her head, voice shaking. You don't understand. It wasn't my decision. Then whose was it? Hazel demanded. Silence. The woman's eyes darted toward Blueface, instinct, habit, fear, and that single glance told the truth louder than any confession. Hazel let out a trembling breath. You protected him. You protected the brand. And when I lost the baby, all you cared about was preventing a headline. The woman's face crumpled. We were told, if this got out, everything would fall apart. The label, the contracts, endorsements. Chrisean's voice cut through like a blade. So you sacrificed her. Reporters leaned forward, pens moving furiously. The narrative was changing. This wasn't petty drama. This was systemic control, manipulation, silencing. Blueface slammed his fist against the table, voice cracking. Stop twisting this. I didn't know she. Hazel stepped toward him, eyes burning. Yes, you did. She reached into her bag again and pulled out a small hospital bracelet. The courtroom went silent. She held it up, hands shaking. They gave this to you when they called. You signed the release paperwork. You knew I was there. Blueface froze. No excuses. No deflection. Just shock. Chrisean stared at him, devastation replacing anger. Her voice came out barely above a whisper, broken and trembling. You were with me that night. You told me you were in the studio. Tears streamed down her face as she shook her head slowly. You held me and said I was the only one. And the whole time, she was losing a baby alone. The emotional weight crushed the room. Even reporters paused, pens lowering, eyes wide. Hazel's voice softened, exhausted. I wasn't just hurt. I was erased. The judge leaned back, stunned, unable to hide the impact. This wasn't about rumors anymore. This was about betrayal, abandonment, manipulation, silencing a woman who suffered. The courtroom wasn't just witnessing a revelation. It was witnessing lives falling apart. And outside those walls, the world was waiting. The moment this leaked, nothing would ever be the same. The courtroom slowly began to quiet, but the silence wasn't relief. It was heavy, suffocating, filled with the weight of everything that had just been exposed. Hazel stood there, exhausted, trembling, holding the hospital bracelet like it was the last remaining piece of her truth. Chrisean wiped at her tears, her body still shaking, trying to hold herself together as the reality settled deeper and deeper into her chest. For a moment, no one moved. Because beyond the shock, beyond the scandal, there was something painfully human unfolding, a woman who suffered alone, a trust that shattered, and a system that chose silence over compassion. People often see headlines and gossip and forget that behind every rumor is a real person. Someone with fears, losses, and scars that don't make it onto social media. Hazel's voice wasn't just an accusation. It was the voice of someone who felt erased, dismissed, pushed aside when she needed support the most. And whether every detail is proven or not, the emotion behind her words struck something raw in everyone watching. Chrisean looked at Hazel through tear-filled eyes, and for the first time, there wasn't anger, only understanding. Pain recognizing pain. Maybe that's what makes this moment so powerful. It forces us to ask difficult questions. How many stories like this get buried? How many women stay silent because they're afraid no one will believe them? How many people get protected, not because they are innocent, but because they are profitable? And now, the entire world is watching. So I want to hear from you. What do you think really happened? Who was protecting who? Was Hazel finally breaking her silence? Or was there someone else pulling the strings all along? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Every perspective matters. And if you want to see what happens next, when the outside world reacts, when the media erupts, and when the judge makes a decision that changes everything, make sure you like, subscribe, and turn on all notifications. Because this story, it may have exploded in that courtroom today, but the real fallout is just beginning.